a chance to chop it up with you like this for a couple of weeks, and it feels like there's been a Julian-sized hole missing in my heart. So I am so glad to be back doing this together. If you have any questions about travel, if you're watching, drop those comments in the section below or to the side, wherever it looks. We're going to try to get to as many as we can. Remember, under Scott's Cheap Flights law, I have to answer the first question no matter what, and then we're going to try to get to as many as we can after that. So drop your questions in. Let us know where you're traveling this summer, this fall. You got any plans coming up? I'm going down to Southern California tomorrow. Very excited, but I wake up for the flight. So we will see how it all goes. Julian, you got any trips upcoming?
No. As boring as that, no. I wish I did, but
that's one of those funny things about working in travel is I think for a lot of folks from the outside, think, oh, it must be so glamorous traveling all the time, taking cheap flights. In reality, we're helping other people be able to travel all the time. We try to take as many trips as we can. We do open vacation policy, 3-week minimum for Scott's Cheap Flights employees, but doesn't mean we're always traveling. We want to make sure we're watching out for those deals for you all.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to like, because we're seeing all of the deals, or we're constantly seeing these deals, like I feel like I have stricter thresholds on what what I want to spend on a flight, and a lot of the times it's probably a little too strict. So that's I don't know, flaw in the plan, but other than that, just looking out for the next place to go. We'll see what I end up with.
Awesome. Well, drop your questions in. Let's get to as many as we can.
Yeah, a lot of friendly people today. I love it. A lot of highs. Stephanie is saying Amsterdam and Greece in October. That's awesome. Let's start off nice. Let's start off with love. Carol says, thank you so much for all you do. I've saved so much money because of you.
Well, thank you, Carol. I appreciate you letting us know, because the best part of my job, I don't want to speak for Julian, the best part of my day is getting to live vicariously through the trips that you and everybody else is able to take. So thanks for letting us know when you get a deal. It really warms my heart to hear about it. Email it to us, post it on social media. Like I said, we're kind of keyboard warriors behind the screen vicariously through your trips.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of great testimonials and just people telling us where to go. So I absolutely love that. First question though, because you do have to answer it. Renee asked, were deals to Dubai, and wondering if you have any cheap flights or suggestions on what to do there.
Ooh, so flights to Dubai don't get cheap all that often. I think Julian's probably checking if we've had any recent deals there. Mm-hmm. Just flights in general from the U.S. to the Middle East tend to not pop up cheap all that often. When they do, of course, we're going to find it and we're going to let you know, but it's nowhere near the frequency that we see somewhere like Italy or Spain or Germany or something like that. Suggestions on what to do there. I've actually never been to Dubai. So if anybody I don't know if you have, Julian, if anybody in the comment section has been to Dubai or the general region, please drop some suggestions for our friend Renee here so we can make sure she has as good a trip as possible.
Yeah. They don't come, you're right, they don't come as often, but we've been seeing them depending on, of course, where you're located and where you're trying to fly out. We've been seeing the deals every month, every other month. We sent out a pretty big Dubai deal last month in the 500s to 600s across the US. So it's definitely there, and we'll definitely keep an eye on it.
I saw John in the comments section saying he got a deal from Raleigh to Dubai for $420 round trip. Nice.
There you go. Wow, that's amazing. Kathy asks, hi, how can I get on your list to find out great rates, Scott?
Go to scottscheapflights.com, sign up. It's free to sign up for the free list. We've got the premium in the elite tier as well. If you want extra deals, extra perks, more ways to make sure that you don't overpay for your flights.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of, I love seeing all of these trips that people have coming up. John has Maldives next, Spain in October, Dubai in January, cruise in February. Wow, that is a packed schedule, and I love it.
Also, I love how this is like a very well structured timing wise in each place. Spain in October, beautiful weather. Dubai in January, not going to be as brutally hot as it is right now. Well done on planning those weather appropriately.
Yeah, exactly. Vivian asks, hi, Delta changed our domestic flight twice so far. The second change resulted in a 4-hour difference from the original return flight time. Would this qualify as a significant schedule change to get a full cash?
Yes, it would, and you're entitled to a full cash refund. So what Vivian is referring to is a federal law from the U.S. Department of Transportation, which says that if an airline cancels or significantly changes your flight, you are entitled to a full cash refund if you want one. They don't specify in the federal law what exactly constitutes a significant change, a significant delay, but they impress it on the airlines to spell out on their own terms what, like how big of a difference would be significant. There's no airline that has less that says more than 4 hours. Anything more is not significant. So a more than 4-hour difference, you're definitely in the clear. Most airlines, it's more like an hour and a half, 2 hours. For a 4-hour difference, you should be great to go. I'd give Delta a call, and if you don't want the flight anymore, ask for a refund. If you do still want to take the trip, you might actually be able to switch to a more convenient flight. If you had a connecting flight, you might be able to switch that to nonstop. If you had, if you're taking a 6 a.m. flight like I am tomorrow, and there's a big change like this, you might be able to switch it to a 9 a.m. flight or something more reasonable. So take advantage of when there's a schedule change like this so that you can get an even better flight than you'd originally booked without paying anything extra for it.
Yeah. Emily, going to Italy at the end of the month. That's amazing. Kendall asks, do y'all have a list of countries requiring travel insurance?
Ooh, I don't have that offhand. There are a few countries, when I visited Belarus a couple summers ago, you did have to, basically when you arrived, you have to buy travel insurance. My understanding is that basically almost every country that does require some amount of either travel insurance or health insurance or something allows you to buy it upon arrival, that it's not something you necessarily have to arrange ahead of time, and that look, I would rather not have to pay than pay, but that it's not a head crack. You're not talking like $1,000 that you're being hit up for when you arrive. It's more like 40, 50, $60 or something. I don't have that full list. I'd probably Google it. I bet Kayak or somewhere else like that has a good list of most of the countries that do. It's not common, but it definitely happens, especially in Eastern Europe and some parts of Asia.
Yeah. Kendall also said, I saw her, I lost it. She also said she loves us and she got a deal that I will find a little later.
While Julian's stalling for time here, I actually wanted to address one thing. I made a mistake. I made a mistake in this Monday's email about Canada reopening. Canada is reopening for Americans this upcoming Monday, August 9th. Very exciting. You have to be vaccinated. Where I made a mistake in the email, and we're going to be putting out a correction in this upcoming week's email, where I made a mistake was saying that you didn't need to have a recent negative test in order to enter Canada. What has changed is that you don't have to take a test when you arrive in Canada, but you do still have to bring a recent negative test, even if you've been fully vaccinated. My apologies. Nobody's perfect, even in Australia. Mea culpa on my part, and we're going to be making sure that folks know in this upcoming email. But I just wanted to, we'd gotten a number of messages from folks pointing out what the correct information was, and I feel bad that I messed it up. So thank you to everybody who let me know, and we're clearing it up. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, and perfect timing. I found it. She said, P.S. I love y'all and have booked many trips because of you. Going to Seychelles in a couple of weeks, 700. And she's given tips, I think, to Dubai. So Kendall's just killing it.
Kendall, MVP, I like it.
I know, I love it. Wow. Nasser is going to Maldives next April, but I use points for this trip. I mean, trip's a trip. That's
nice, awesome. Nice.
Yeah. Judy asked, my plan is to fly from Toronto to Germany next July. I want to take my 2 boys to visit my best friend. I've been twice without them and my hubby. Can I get cheap flights to Germany from Toronto?
You absolutely can, and you're right to be starting to think about it well in advance. Look, it's not going to be an easy time to get cheap flights. If you wanted to ask what is the most expensive month to travel, it's almost certainly July. Summer, weather's great, but especially for a lot of teachers and students and families with kids in school, this might be the only time of year they can go. And so this is why flights tend to be at their most expensive in the summer. And this is why I think you're really smart to be starting to monitor well in advance, because you only need to lock in the price once. You only need a cheap flight to pop up from Toronto to Germany once, sometime in the next, I don't know, 7-8 months or so. I would try, if I were in your shoes, I would basically be trying to get this flight booked by February or March of 2022, but I would be spending now until February or March just monitoring, watching, setting alerts, keeping an eye on those email inboxes, and seeing when those, for when that deal drops below, $600 round trip Canadian, below $500 round trip American dollars. Then I would pull the trigger, because that, even though that's a little higher than you might expect to pay in September or October, July flights tend to be really expensive. And what you want to avoid is a situation where you've made it to March, you don't have tickets, and the only flights are more than $1,000. It's not likely they're going to get significantly cheaper from there.
Yeah. Beth asks, we jumped on the direct flights Chicago to India, in January, but I'm afraid it won't happen. Do you think they will open?
That's a great question. The difficulty in predicting this is just the inherent difficulty of predicting the course of the pandemic. Look at where the U.S. is today versus where it was a month ago. A month ago we were at record lows, and now it's surging pretty quickly. Where are we going to be a month from now? Probably significantly different. I hope a lot better than we are right now, but there's no way to say. And then trying to then extrapolate out to January, even more difficult. So the thing that I would do basically is be patient, not assume that the situation today is going to look like the situation in January. B, if you do decide, look, we're just going to not do this trip, not in the right mindset, it's not going to work. You're best off being patient and letting the airline be the one to either cancel or significantly change the flight, because if they do that, then like we talked about earlier, you are entitled to a full cash refund. Meanwhile, if you are the one who cancels your flight, then you're likely only going to get a voucher. If even that, there might even be a penalty taken out. So think of it like a game of chicken. Even if you've decided not to take the trip, still holding out as long as possible, because there's no difference. There's no benefit to canceling now versus canceling that trip in December. And in the meantime, it's very possible that the airline will change or cancel that flight, and you'll be entitled to a cash refund.
Yeah, that's still one of my favorite email headlines that I think we've sent out. It was like, play chicken with, I forgot what.
It's a game of chicken.
It's a game of chicken. Exactly.
It's a game of chicken.
There you go. Yeah. Bailey says, hey, from Yellow Springs, I want to travel all around.
Hey.
And I plan to use your service if the world is open.
I love that. Yellow Springs, my hometown, this tiny little, not even big enough to be called a town. It's a tiny village in Southwest Ohio, where I grew up. Love Yellow Springs. Still have tons of Yellow Springs. I need to get a Yellow Springs thing back here or something to shout it out. But our main claim to fame is that it's Dave Chappelle's hometown for any comedy fans out there. So
that is very cool. I was also, when you said hey, it seemed a little more enthusiastic than your regular hey. So I was like, does he know her? Or
what the hell is Yellow Springs?
Yeah, and then there we go. Okay, the world makes sense again. So, but yeah, I mean, I kind of can picture that area. I know Dayton's near there, Columbus, even Cincinnati is drivable.
Yeah, probably. Dayton was my home airport growing up, which is why I have an extra special place in my heart anytime we find a great deal out of Dayton.
There you go. All right, so we're going to combine two questions here. Robin asks, what about Okinawa, Japan in November? And Janelle asks, I purchased a deal to Portugal in December. What are the chances it will get canceled? So Japan, November, Portugal, December.
I'll start with the good news. Portugal, December, very, very, very high chance. Right now, there are only 2 countries in Europe right now that you cannot visit as a normal, regular American tourist, and that's Norway and Hungary. Every single country otherwise in Europe is open to you. You know, you might have to show proof of vaccination, you might have to show a recent negative test, but you're able to visit as a normal American tourist. That, you know, there's not a 0% chance that could change. Like Israel, for instance, is starting to reimpose quarantine for vaccinated Americans. I would not expect many other countries to follow that lead. I think the chances of being able to take this Portugal trip in December is going to be very high. Japan in November. I am feeling a little bit less optimistic than I had even a month or 2 ago, mostly because of the Delta variant. My reasons for optimism are that the vaccination campaign is continuing apace. Japan just passed 40% of the population has gotten at least 1 dose of vaccine. It is, you know, ramping up pretty significantly. My reason for pessimism, they've got a pretty big wave happening right now, not nearly like US levels of infection, but certainly a lot bigger than Japan has seen in the past. And the fact that just with the Delta variant, I think a lot more folks are sort of on edge, less likely to take away the sorts of border restrictions, or at least to ease them, than they would have been in an alternate universe where Delta variant is not happening. So, will November in Japan be able to happen? I don't think there's a 0% chance. We're still 3 months out. And like we said, the course of the pandemic can change pretty rapidly. But, you know, gun to my head, best guess on the chances, 1 in 3, 33%, you know, somewhere along those lines. Yeah. I think if you had asked me a month ago, I would have said 50%, but my pessimism, like I said, has been increasing just with the rise of Delta variant. And I think it's less likely you'll see some of the holdouts easing their border restrictions sooner rather than later. So we're going to, you know, continue to monitor. And as soon as there are more developments, we'll let you know.
Yeah. We answered a question from Kathy earlier, but she said, I'm new here. So welcome, Kathy. You know, we're super excited to have you. And hopefully you get some great deals, great flights out of this group. So, all right. Laura asks, I want to travel to Orlando the week before December 14th to 19th in first class, and prices over $1,000. Do you think it will come down?
It's possible. It depends a lot where you're flying from and how locked in your dates are. As you've noticed, first class and business class prices tend to be not just a little bit more expensive than economy, not just twice as expensive, not 3 times expensive, usually more like 5 to 8 times more expensive than economy. Do I think it'll come down? It might. There's still quite a bit of time. And you know, December is a really funny month when it comes to airfare, because as folks can reasonably guess, the sort of penumbra around Christmas is really, really expensive for flights starting around, I don't know, December 18th or something. But for the couple weeks before that, the like first half of December, it's really actually quite cheap to travel. And the reason why is it's kind of a dead zone between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so not many people traveling then. You can actually get some really good deals in early December. So I don't know how locked in your dates are, but you're going to be much more likely to get a good deal if you're able to travel a little bit earlier in that beginning section of December than you are if you're kind of start to get into the precipice of Christmas.
I love that I can always learn a new word or two on these Facebook Live. Penumbra.
The problem of the penumbra. It's one of my favorite philosophical concepts.
I even Googled it and still don't fully get it. So, you know, we're doing well here. Stephanie asks, questions for you travel superheroes. Will the elite subscription have both first class tickets and regular ticket deals? Yes.
I love questions like this because I'm normally so talkative, and I can answer this one in one word: yes.
Boom. There you go. That's all you need to know. All right, Sandy. Ooh, Great question. Scott, in your book, you mentioned not buying insurance for travel. Which charge card offers the medical coverage that you referred to? Also, great book.
Thank you, and thank you, Sandy, for not only buying it but actually reading it. Not everybody who bought the book actually read the book, so I appreciate you. What you refer to is the fact that many credit cards, especially more premium credit cards like an Amex Platinum, Chase Sapphire Reserve, ones like that, actually include some amount of trip insurance, trip coverage, even sometimes medical coverage for the flights and the trips that you book, as long as you use that card to pay for your flight. I don't have a full list in my mind, unfortunately, about which ones include it. The points guy is actually one of the best for sort of if there's any perk you like about a credit card, whether it's medical coverage, insurance, trip delay insurance, car insurance, primary rental insurance, things like that. Just searching that in credit card, the points guys got a great list that not only is comprehensive but stays updated about which cards include this type of thing. But in general, the more sort of premium the card, the higher the likelihood that it's going to include some amount of medical or trip coverage.
All right, there's a lot of great comments. This might be a new question. I know we don't get many new questions because we've had so many questions, but I don't know if we've answered this before. Dean, he asked tips on sleeping in an airport on an overnight layover. Like I've had this question before, but I don't think we've talked about it on Facebook Live.
Someday I should make a map of all the airports that I have taken a little nap in. It would be pretty comprehensive. Ooh, tips on it. Obviously trying to find somewhere sort of quiet, out of the way, not within the main sort of foot traffic. Oftentimes you'll find that at the ends of the airports, so going to the end of the wing, the end of the terminal, rather than being in the middle, just have fewer people going by, more likely to be able to sleep through. Always packing an eye mask and earplugs. You can get them super cheap down in Walgreens, CVS, wherever. And, you've got, listen, you're in the airport now. Masks are required. You got your eye mask. You got your earplugs. Maybe you're wearing a hoodie, pull it up. You're basically in your own little cocoon. There's so much goodness to it. For me, the only other tip that like I have felt that other folks, I'm curious to hear if other folks have experience and have anything to add. I always like to sort of, like pretzel my arm or leg or something through the strap of one of my bags. Just not like I'm terribly worried that somebody's going to like snatch my bag while I'm asleep, but like, I don't know. I find it a little easier to sleep if I'm not sitting there, at least even thinking the thoughts. And so just have my arm like through my strap of my backpack or something gives me a little bit of peace of mind to be able to sleep a little sounder. Yeah. Anything to add there, Julian, or folks in the comments? I'll always love to hear more.
I think I slept overnight in an airport only one time. I don't remember where, and I don't remember where I was sleeping, but I was able to find they had just like a long, like almost like a beanbag couch. So I really I took a lap around and saw
there's actually a website. Don't quote me on this address, but I believe it's called sleepinginairports.net that actually has like airport specific information, the best spots. I don't know which ones the quietest, maybe which ones have like benches without armrests in between so you can really kind of stretch out. That would be my other sort of insider recommendation, sleepinginairports.net.
I could have used that. I could have used that during that trip. But all right, Enrique, our good friend Enrique says, "Hi team, Lululemon again. Let's sneak away with AirPods again. I love that." He has a similar question. Amazed. I'm so glad he was able to get the 240 round trip deal to Japan. I know you talked about Japan for November, but Enrique is asking about January.
Just given the extra time, I feel more confident about January than November. If you want me to put like a percentage guess to it, somewhere between 50 to 60%. One of the important things too is that some other countries in the region are starting to open up. We saw this past month Thailand opening up just Phuket as a sort of, they call it their sandbox program, just to see like how it went for to allow international tourism just within the island of Phuket. Singapore seems like it's going to make moves to open up next month. And so I think the more you see countries in the region opening up, the better, the more it sort of portends Japan and other places in the area hopefully opening up sooner rather than later. We're going to continue to monitor, and remembering that January, 5 months from now, that's a long time when it comes to the course of the pandemic and the amount of vaccination that's able to happen between now and then. Like we said, Japan is now over 40% vaccinated, where even just a month or two ago they were basically in the single digits. And so I feel good about the way that that's going, and it's just a question of exactly when it's going to happen, not if.
Yeah. We're going to combine two questions here again. So Nathan asks, with the current Delta variant, are countries starting to give new restrictions to make it difficult to travel internationally again? And then to add on to that, Isaac asks, what guidelines do you suggest for traveling internationally this fall 2021?
With one exception, that being Israel, there has not been any country that has blocked Americans, tourists, from coming in a way that they had previously allowed them. Everywhere that allowed American tourists in July is still allowing them in August. Now, the main change that we have seen, and the main change that I would expect to continue to happen, is just a tightening on what you're required to show in order to enter. So for countries that might have allowed all Americans, regardless of vaccination status before, now they might only allow folks who have been vaccinated, Americans who have been vaccinated, to travel there. And for countries that only allowed vaccinated Americans to travel, they might at some point say, okay, vaccinated Americans can come here, but you also have to bring a recent negative test. The only exception that we've seen to that is Israel, which reimposed a mandatory quarantine. But again, I would not expect many countries to follow that lead. I think the vast majority of countries are going just to continue to either keep the scenario that they have now, or still allow vaccinated Americans to travel there, just with some amount of requirement beforehand. Maybe something as simple as a health form or health questionnaire form, maybe something as stringent as needing a negative test as well before you come there.
Yeah. Fred asks, this is a longer one, what's the best city in continental Europe to fly into and out of? So he gives examples like, fly into one city and then out of a different one. So we actually do send these deals too. We send open jaw deals. We sometimes send 2-in-1 deals. My quick answer is it depends on what you want to see and where you want to go. I think some of the cheaper ones, or generally cheaper ones that we've seen flying into and out of, have been kind of the major cities. So Paris, Amsterdam, Rome is a pretty big one. So yeah, there's a lot of different combinations there. I don't know if we've seen one that's been significantly, consistently cheaper for an open jaw for others. But yeah, Scott, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, basically everywhere pops up, and then anytime a cheap flight pops up to one city, whether let's say it's Warsaw, it's Vienna, it's Brussels, it's Berlin, checking to see, okay, I found August 24th through 31st works for a $500 flight to Berlin. What about, can I fly into Berlin on August 24th and then out of Vienna on August 31st? Can I still get around that $500 price point? There's no way to know in advance. You just have to do a little bit of guess and check. And the best way to guess and check is to, again, find that cheap flight to one city to begin with, and then start playing around and see if you can get it as an open jaw where you fly back from a different city. There's not, to Julian's point, specific cities where this works better than others. It's just a matter of which deals are popping up when, and do they happen to work as an open jaw as well, or is it only as a round trip?
I like all these comments of like Azalea says, "Don't sleep in Boston. Airport is wild." That's always a funny one. I saw like Christine says, "Wear a long scarf that doubles as a blanket." Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. Final question, Scott. You have time for one?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, final one. Jim asks, "Thanks for all the info. You guys rock. Did you ever think about a Scott's Stays, focusing on private stays such as an Airbnb or hotels?"
Ooh, I love this question. It's not something that we've like explored super granularly. Hear the suggestion from time to time. I love the creativity of it, but the reason why like we haven't explored it yet is basically because whereas flight prices tend to be super volatile, it's expensive today, it's cheap tomorrow, and for the exact same flight, hotel prices and Airbnb prices tend to be much more constant. They tend to be much more even keeled, and they tend to be much more of a direct correlation with quality. You know, the Four Seasons and the Ritz is always going to be expensive. It's always going to be much more expensive than, you know, the Days Inn or the Nights Inn or something. And you can tend to see a much more sort of linear relationship between price and quality in a way that you do not see with flights. Not only do the price tend to fluctuate wildly, but the recent example I like to use is there was a time a couple months ago when there were flights from Pittsburgh to Japan in 2022 for $316 round trip. That was on a 5-star airline. Or you could fly American Airlines out of Pittsburgh for $316 over to Philadelphia. So it's like the distance, the quality of the airline, the desirability of the destination. Don't get me wrong, I love Philadelphia. I was born there, but I'd rather go to Japan. Okay, I'm willing to say that. You just don't tend to see that much fluctuation in hotels the way you do with flights, and so that's why we wanted to make sure that folks are not overpaying for flights, and why I think people tend to get much more of a headache trying to find and book a cheap flight, whereas it's not quite the same challenge with stays, accommodations. That all having been said, I love the suggestion. I love folks kind of giving us feedback, criticism where it's warranted, ideas where you've got them, comments anytime we're doing something good, or compliments, I should say. Because this honestly helps us build new and more stuff. A lot of the features we built over the past 12 months, 24 months, everything from, business and first class flights, domestic flights. A year ago, we just launched domestic flights. That was all thanks to your all's suggestions. You're all's like, hey, can we get domestic deals? Yeah, I want to travel cheap international, but I also want to go to Disney World. I also want to go to LA. I also want to go to Chicago. Your suggestions and feedback is so crucial in helping guide what we build. So thank you, Jim, and thank you everybody who continues to let us know kind of what you're being interested in. With that, thank you all again for the awesome questions. Thank you for who is Julian's?
Who's Julian's barber?
I think you're kind of barber there, huh?
Yeah, this is my guy. But yeah,
who is Julian's barber? Let's hear
it. If anyone in New York City or Manhattan is looking for a barber, Tim at 12 Pal. Highly recommend. So, but thank you for the question. This is
I'm just going to assume he didn't have enough characters left to ask who is Scott's barber, and the answer is a combination of Scott and his wife cutting that hair together.
I think there's a character in it. For Facebook comments now.
Yeah, exactly. But listen, thanks everybody for your awesome questions. Thanks so much for being Scott's Cheap Flights members. We love you all. We'll be back next week.